Chapter 4. My first failed startup. When I got admitted to the National Institute of Science Education and Research (NISER) as part of the first group to ever attend the college, there was no building, faculty, or facility. Everything was hosted temporarily in the Institute of Physics IOP, a tiny institute located in the suburbs of Bhubaneswar, in the state of Orissa. I was excited to be at college because it was my time to finally be away from home, away from restrictions, and enjoy my freedom. It was the kind of freedom that we get when someone hands us the keys to our first car and feel the thrill of driving it. It was my chance to be in the driver's seat to decide which road to take and be in control of my own car and life. At that point, it hadn't occurred to me that I could think to fly an airplane, metaphorically speaking. Thankfully, I had earned a full scholarship, which gave me much more freedom than the average college student. As we were part of the first group of students there, I got an opportunity to witness how a college was built from the ground up. I saw that they were buying a lot of expensive equipment from abroad, which made me wonder if it could be built locally at a reduced cost. Around the same time, a popular Indian movie, 3 Idiots, was released. It showed how the main character followed his passion and built amazing devices while challenging the norms of society. That inspired me to become the 4th idiot. During the summer vacation, I got a chance to think freely about various possibilities. Being a mechanic's son, I was obsessed with machines and jugaad or hack, an adaptive and flexible approach to a solution. I wondered if we could build a low-cost centrifuge using junkyard parts. The only way I could find out was to build a prototype, so that's what I set out to do. I applied for summer internships to more than 100 professors across top colleges in India, but didn't receive a positive response. Hence, I decided to make it myself. A centrifuge is a machine that spins specimen samples at a high speed to separate components based on their density. I received approval from the head of our department, got officially assigned to work with Mr. Sri Chandan, and began my quest to build my first prototype. I had no local connections in Bhubaneswar, a very important thing to have as a budding entrepreneur. I turned to the connections that I did have. I asked my father if he could help me get access to a scooter engine from a local junkyard. He put me in touch with one of his friends in Ranchi who helped me get it. I had to transport the scooter engine via train to the IOP mechanical workshop in Bhubaneswar. Carrying it wasn't easy because I was built like a stick figure and the scooter engine was about 25 kilos, which was almost half of my body weight. But my determination gave me strength, and I made it to the workshop with the engine. Once I reached my institute, I confirmed with the department head that I would receive reimbursement of the money I was spending on the project. He was very affirmative about it. It gave me a sense of security, and I submitted the invoices for reimbursement. Government systems work slowly. To buy even one piece of equipment, I had to gather at least 3 price quotations and submit it to the purchase department. After going through the review, the one with the least price would be procured. On top of that, when even the college is in the process of setting up, systems run even slower. There was no sign of money coming back. I was running low on budget, and I felt like I may not be able to continue further with the project. I called up one of my friends, Vikram, to see if he could loan me some money. Thankfully, he came to my rescue and things started moving again. It took close to a month for some of the spare parts to arrive, and I finally was able to get started with doing real hands-on work. During this period, a few staff at the IOP workshop, one of my college friends Ujjwal, and a mechanic Mr. Badal started helping me out occasionally. Since I had done a part-time internship at my father's shop for well over a decade, I had some basic skills to begin with. Every day after school, I used to tinker with various tools and help my father out with his work until we headed home for a late lunch. The most important thing about learning new skills and training with my father was that while I wasn't changing the world, but the world was changing for me. As I was building the centrifuge, I was falling in love with it. The thought of it wouldn't let me sleep many times. That's passion. It could be there for the ideas we hope to change the world with or a person. Passion, it drives us, motivates us. It is important, like the engine that keeps our car or airplane going. But is it enough? I would only later find out. Things were shaping up well, but for me to test if my invention was going to work or not, I had to wait for the motor to arrive. Patience was another thing I realized was much needed in this entrepreneurial journey. Good thing I had plenty of practice since my early days. Thanks to the low budget and slow procurement process, it took a whole month for it to finally arrive. I was grateful that it arrived at last. To connect the motor to the rest of the machine, I had to do a lot more processing. The equipment in the IOP workshop wasn't sufficient to do the job. I had to carry the motor and the scooter engine on my bicycle to a mechanic which was 10 kilometers away in the main city. As I was doing something like this for the first time, I had to go back and forth multiple times. Thanks to the monsoon season, I would get drenched either in sweat or rain on those trips. Those rides were tiring but fun. With time, I started running low on budget yet again. This in hindsight helped me realize how a well-planned budget and having enough funds to do something industrial is key in being successful as an entrepreneur. Yes, not everyone starts with a high budget, and I certainly didn't. But there are legal, moral, and ethical methods to materialize your entrepreneurial journey even if you don't have a big bank balance to begin with. I will discuss more on that in Chapter 12. Being low on budget, but not wanting to quit building the centrifuge meant that I had to find low-cost solutions to problems, which is another important entrepreneurial skill to have for a company to grow. For example, when a machine runs at high speeds, it generates a lot of vibration. Usually, these machines have rubber paddings to prevent vibration from damaging the equipment. The cost of each rubber padding piece was close to 100 rupees. I wondered what a low-cost alternative for that could be instead. I saw that one of my friends Abhishek had a torn slipper in his room which he was about to throw away. It occurred to me then that these beach-friendly slippers were made of a material that is soft yet seemingly everlasting. With my friend's permission, I cut pieces out of it and used them in place of the rubber padding in my centrifuge. Much to my delight, it worked. I created multiple similar low-cost solutions, and eventually the centrifuge was ready for a test run. I wanted to submit it as a project for a scholarship Kishore Vaigyanik Protsahan Yojana. On the final test day, I got a surprise. The pulley that connected the motor to the rest of the machine broke into two parts because of a manufacturing defect. Replacing that would easily take another week, implying I wouldn't be able to enter for the scholarship. I was obviously disappointed, but reminded myself of something I have always believed in. Everything happens for a good reason. Thankfully, the breakage didn't happen while the machine was running. It could have hurt anyone around. After all, we can only control what is in our control. It took me another 2 weeks to get the centrifuge back into running condition. I was ready to test it, but I was scared. I wasn't sure which other part would break down or fly off at me. I hid behind a giant piece of equipment in the workshop as if I was at war and I needed to hide in a bunker. I pressed the power button, and finally, the centrifuge went through its first successful run. I was on top of the world because it took close to 4 months to get there. I was the proud parent of this child I brought into this world, seeing my efforts coming to fruit at last. Although it was an excellent prototype, I couldn't take it any further because I had no clue about the hardcore business side of things like scaling up, marketing, financing, etc. at that time. Hence, it is still lying as if it were a museum art piece at the IOP workshop to this day. Regardless, it was an excellent learning experience for me. It helped me get an internship at IIT Madras, as well as supported my PhD application. When I share this story with an audience at an entrepreneurship workshop and ask them about their learning experience from my story, I get various answers such as maintaining a positive attitude, having a solution-oriented mindset, being resilient, and learning from failures. This brings me to the topic of what it really takes to be an entrepreneur, which I will discuss in the next chapter. Chapter Summary. Good connections can accelerate our progress big time. During the training period, we don't change the world, but the world changes for us because we develop a new perspective. We can only control what is in our control.